Welcome to the first episode of this year's Playmakers show. I'm Riley Kramer, and we have a lot to catch up on. We've changed the show around with a few new segments and a few new faces that I can't wait for you to get to know this semester. If you're a Chiefs fan like myself, this weekend was a bummer, but congrats to Tampa Bay for winning their first Super Bowl since 2003. Caroline Soro will have more after the intro.
Welcome back. I'm Caroline Soro, and today's show will be one to remember. Later in the studio, we have Blake Sevenbergen introducing a new segment called What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas, breaking down the losers and winners of this weekend's bets. And we'll have Caleb Jennerette and Gabe Johnson with our first 2-minute warning. But before we get into the show, the long-anticipated Super Bowl matchup between vet Tom Brady and young Patrick Mahomes took place this past Sunday. And while we weren't able to have a traditional Super Bowl party, our Playmakers crew decided to bring our COVID-safe Super Bowl recap to you. Let's take a look.
All right, everybody, happy Super Bowl Sunday. Sorry, this is a Vikings jersey. Whoops. I guess I'm rooting for the Chiefs today. As always, go Chiefs!
I usually root for the NFC team because I don't know, I'm an NFC gal. So, go Brady, go Buccaneers.
My prediction for the Super Bowl, I'm going to say it right now. Chiefs 31, Buccaneers 27. I'm unbiased. Got my Broncos Von Miller jersey on.
What do you want to say? Chiefs?
Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs, absolutely.
I was forced to put on this Chiefs jersey, by the way, but there's no chance I'm taking the Broncos one off. It's not looking good for the Chiefs, though, at halftime.
It's now halftime. That's all I have to say.
Wow, the Chiefs didn't even score a touchdown. I did not expect that at all.
Don't underestimate Tom Brady.
My prediction was so wrong, but it feels so good.
I really do think that Tampa deserved it. 100%. Tampa Bay deserved it.
It's safe to say the outcome of Super Bowl 55 was not expected. Tampa Bay's defense came out swinging as they forced 2 interceptions, keeping the Chiefs out of the end zone the entire game. Though Brady only racked up 201 yards, he was able to post 3 touchdowns on the day. All while making history with his right-hand man, Rob Gronkowski, as they connected on the first touchdown of the game for their 13th time in the postseason. While Patrick Mahomes and his right-hand man, Travis Kelce, were unable to connect the entire game, which ultimately led to the 31-9 deficit to the Buccaneers. So what's next? Should Tom Brady retire after this big win, or could we potentially see a Super Bowl rematch next year between the vet and the newcomer? For my way too early Super Bowl 56 prediction, I think it'll be Rams vs. Bills. But for now, let's kick it to the KU Sports Recap with Gus and Zane.
Where you go to college makes a statement about you. This place will become a part of you, your identity for life. The University of Kansas, a great place to be you.
Well, Gus, for the first time in 12 years, the KU's men's basketball team was not ranked in the AP Top 25. When asked about the history of being within the top 25 teams in the nation and why this year is different, Coach Bill Self had this to say.
It's a great accomplishment, even though it doesn't mean anything now, but it's a great accomplishment to
to have good enough players, and so many players have made so many sacrifices over the years during the good and the bad runs. The guys were always able to minimize the negative and maximize the positive. And so that's what's kind of frustrating with this. We haven't been able to do that with this group consistently at all. So, but yeah, it's a great deal. It's sad it's going to come to an end, and those sorts of things. But you know, all we can do is hopefully play well enough to start another one.
Coach Self makes a great point. This year's team is different, but the Jayhawks were able to bounce back Monday night against Oklahoma State, despite Kay Cunningham's 26 points. KU won against Oklahoma State 78-66.
That's right. David McCormick led the charge for the Jayhawks with 23 points. It finally feels like DMAC is taking the reign over as the big man on campus.
Another player who has stepped up as a leader on and off the court is Marcus Garrett, who was named a Senior Class Award candidate.
Correct. This class award focuses on athletes who use their platform on the court to make a positive impact as leaders off the court. Marcus has been a big part of the KU team, and watching him this year has just been special.
Last night, the Jayhawks won against Iowa State 97-64. In that game, the Jayhawks were led by Ochai Agbaji, who had 19 points on 7 for 13 shooting, including going 5 for 10 from 3. Christian Brown had 18 points, while Jalen Wilson grabbed his second double-double in a row, scoring 16 and grabbing 11 rebounds.
It was all Kansas from the start to finish as Iowa State struggled with 3 offensive turnovers in the first half. Overall, with the combination of solid defense and quality shooting, the Jayhawks dominated the Cyclones, making it 2 wins this week and looking for 3 as they play Iowa State again tomorrow at 2 p.m.
Right you are, Zane. Kansas could potentially be back into the top 25 by next Monday. And while KU basketball is trying to get back into the top 25, KU football has had some updates on the recruiting and coaching side.
That's right, Gus. KU football landed its highest-ranked recruit ever in school history with 4-star recruit Quay Davis.
Not only that, KU football also announced the new offensive coordinator for the team in Mike DeBoard.
DeBoard, a former offensive coordinator and associate head coach for the Indiana Hoosiers, and has a past in the NFL. Many NFL coaches have high praise for the new hire, including head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid.
Weeks after announcement of the new offensive coordinator, Kansas released their 2021 schedule with 6 games at home and 6 games on the road. In addition to the 9 conference games, their non-conference games this year will feature South Dakota at home on September 4th. They'll be at Coastal Carolina on September 11th, and they'll be at Duke on September 25th.
I can't wait. That will do it for this week's KU Sports Recap. Riley, what are your thoughts on KU sports?
I mean, it sounds like we have a good season going for all of the sports. Good luck to the basketball team, and congrats on KU football. The Kansas track and field team has had a busy season leading up to the Iowa State Classic this weekend. Pole vaulter Zach Bradford marked number 3 in KU indoor history, along with Samantha Van Hookey, another pole vaulter achieving 4th performer in KU indoor history. Bryce Hoppel, a former Kansas Jayhawk, ran the 800-meter in the American Track League in Fayetteville, Arkansas. He set the record for number 2 in the United States indoor history with a time of 1:44.37.
Until he turned pro. Wow. And this is a confident way to start 2021 as Bryce Hoppel takes it.
An amazing time for Bryce. And now it's time for our Sports Podcast Weekly Highlight. This week we have Gabe Daniel and Logan Rosengard's Jayhawk Hockey Podcast. Let's take a listen.
Podcast for the Hockey Club. I'm without Logan Rosengard, my co-host. But joining me on the episode is Miles Manson, Preston McConnell, and Brent Bachman.
Freshman year, we'd show up at Nebraska and we wouldn't even have enough guys to start the game because we all decided to go out and enjoy ourselves and try to drive up the day of, get out at like 6 a.m. and we're showing up like right as the puck drops. Like people like, you guys, what are you guys doing? Game's already started. So to seeing us from there with, maybe not such an organized group to then putting together what I still think was probably the best club hockey team in that D3 level in the country. I mean, other than some Canadian team that ended up winning it, I mean, that game we lost, we shut them like 60-15. I mean, we dominated them. Just sometimes the bounces don't go your way in hockey, but I would say just, looking back at it and thinking about that whole journey to see where we ended up was really,
Once again, you can listen to the Gabe Daniels Sports Podcast on Spotify and Apple Music every other Wednesday. Now, everyone knows one of the biggest betting days of the year is Super Bowl Sunday. And here to break down the winners and losers of Vegas is Blake Sevenbergen with What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas.
Hi, I'm Blake Sevenbergen, and welcome to What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas. The Super Bowl is always home to some of the craziest sports bets of the year, where bettors can place wagers on everything from the coin toss to the color of the coach's Gatorade shower at the end of the game. And this year was no different. The best bet of Super Bowl weekend comes from Texas, where furniture store owner Jim Mattress Mac McInville placed a $3.46 million bet on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at plus 3.5. The Buccaneers went on to win and cover the 3.5-point spread, which netted McInville a $2.72 million profit. On the other side, the worst bet of the weekend came from former NFL player Pat McAfee. McAfee decided to place a $30,000 wager on the coin toss to land on tails, which is the largest prop bet on a coin toss to date.
Oh, no. Travis called heads.
Good flip.
No!
Sorry.
You're not sorry.
I'm sorry that it worked out this way, but I told you.
You're not
I had
sorry.
to trust my instincts. You asked me what I thought. I thought it was going to be heads. Damn you.
McAfee decided that instead of trying to bet against the Chiefs or Bucks, his best chance was to take the 50-50 of correctly picking the coin toss. However, the toss landed on heads, and McAfee was $30,000 in the hole. Finally, an honorable mention for best bet of the weekend goes to Yuri Andrade of Boca Raton, Florida. Andrade reportedly placed a $50,000 prop bet at plus 750 for there to be a streaker at the Super Bowl. Andrade decided to take matters into his own hands when in the fourth quarter of the game, he ran onto the field. And after paying his $500 bail, Andrade reportedly made away with $374,000. And that, folks, is why what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. With that, it is now time for your 2-minute warning, where Caleb Jenneret and Gabe Johnson see who took the crown this fantasy football season in our new segment, The Fantasy Suite.
Welcome to the first 2-minute warning. This week's segment is the Fantasy Suite. As you know, Caleb and I have been keeping everyone up to date with our fantasy football. It was a strange season for fantasy players, and we're going to break down the winners and losers of the 2020 season. Starting off with my team, I finished 4th in my division, which wasn't enough to make it to the playoffs. On the bright side, though, I had Aaron Rodgers and Travis Kelce outperforming most of my team as they both finished top 5 in their positions. Rodgers averaged almost 23 points per game, while Kelce averaged 16. Someone who really surprised me this year was Marvin Jones Jr. with the Detroit Lions. Without his quarterback and secondary receiver for most of the season, he was still able to perform well as he averaged 12 points per game.
My fantasy season ended in the ultimate heartbreak, 2nd place. I pushed my way through the playoffs, coming in as the lowest qualifying team with the help of a couple monster games from Stephon Diggs, but my Cinderella story couldn't last forever as I fell 1 game short. My MVP of the season was no doubt Stephon Diggs, but close behind him is Kyler Murray, who for most of the season was the best quarterback in the league fantasy-wise. My surprise performer of the year was rookie running back DeAndre Swift for the Detroit Lions, who started off slow, but made himself into a top 20 fantasy running back by the end of the season.
Yeah, it was definitely a very strange season. I had a lot of great pickups this year, but who would you say was your most valuable pickup or trade?
My most valuable pickup is definitely Stephon Diggs. I traded him in the middle of the season for Justin Jefferson and Justin Herbert, who, for the most part, were both on my bench at the time. But I also picked up James Robinson for the Jaguars on the waiver wire, and he was a top 5 running back all year, and that was a big surprise for me. How about you?
Yeah, definitely. I picked up Jamal Williams really early in the season, and being a Packers fan, it was just easy for me, being able to follow the team, knowing how the running back duo worked. And so he was a really good RB2 or flex player for me because while he wasn't the first string running back for the Packers, he was still getting a lot of touches, especially towards the goal line. So he would get, not as many yards, but he still got a lot of touchdowns. So he ended up on my team for most of the season and really performed well for a backup.
There's some big pickups. Well, that's all we have for today's 2-minute warning. Back to you, Riley.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at PlaymakersKU to stay up to date with live tweeting and highlights throughout the week. Tune into next week's show as we sit down with KU's track and field freshman 4. And remember, it's not about the game you played, but the plays you made. Rock chalk.